All right, folks. So welcome to Book of Experts TV. And today is going to be a different kind of session. Some of you guys, if you've been with us before, you're like, wait a minute, where's the music? What's going on? I'm going to explain that in just a moment. So this is going to be a different kind of session, and it's going to be a treat for you as well, because we have a special guest, and it's actually the first time we're going to do a pre-recorded session with you. You'll see why in just a moment, and I'll explain what's going to happen after we do the recording, because the most important thing you can do is take today's information and actually work with it. So today's going to be a little bit more like a workshop. It's going to have that workshop feel, because we're going to take the information. Again, it's a pre-recorded interview. I'm teasing. I'm not going to tell you who the guest is quite yet. We're going to take that interview. We're going to then go into the workshop format. I'll make sure you guys, if you're watching this, that you get the link, because we're using AirMeet. It's a different platform. That's where our community is gathering. They're going to be sitting at the Q&A tables, and we're actually going to workshop the information that you're going to learn today, and then we're going to go use it. So it's all about it being actionable, right? We want you to get the results, because when you do events like this is not only the masterclass format where you learn something interesting, learn something new, but more importantly, we do the networking. We do the Q&A tables, we do the speed networking, and it's all about taking what you learn and being able to go talk to other people and get immediate feedback, so you have faster learning cycles. So without further ado, let me tell you a little bit about our guest. He's actually been called the Patron Saint of entrepreneurs by Simon Sinek, of all people. So Simon Sinek, who's a pretty big name himself, is actually called this guy the Patron Saint of entrepreneurs. And one of the reasons why is the success that he's had with all the different books that he's written. And I'm going to show you a couple of these titles, and I think you'll know right away. So we're talking about Mike Michalowicz. And you probably, if you don't recognize that name immediately, you probably do recognize that white covered book with the orange line there in the graphic. That's Profit First. Mike is best known and well known really for his Profit First, because that changed the course of his entrepreneurial experience, his life, and there are Profit First professionals all around the world who are teaching this idea of when you own the business, you actually have to set it up so that you pay yourself first. And that's kind of the opposite of how a lot of us do it. We pay our bills, we pay our people, we do all these things. And I'm not going to get into the details of that book, but there's a reason why that has become his best known title. It is not his only book. In fact, today's interview is mostly focused on his newest book, which is coming out. It's available in the fall. You can pre-order it now. But the book is called Different is Better. Different is better, and it's how to talk about your business, how to work on the sales and marketing front end of your business so that people actually care. Because if they tune out before you even start talking, before you share the really good stuff, the good work that you're doing, it's not going to serve you. So we're gonna go deep into Different is Better and why he wrote this book and where it fits in with his other books as well. I think you'll really enjoy this. But what I want you to do is stick around with us till the end of the pre-recorded interview, because then we're actually going to go into the workshop tables. We're going to apply this D.A.D test, and you'll see what I mean in just a moment. We'll apply the D.A.D test to your business, and then you're actually going to do something with it. You're going to do it with our little group. We want you to join us for that. I'll make sure I put a link in the comments. But with that said, let's get into the interview. Like, why hold it back, right? Mike Michalowicz joining us here on Book of Experts TV. You guys are not going to want to miss today's episode. We're actually going to hear from the guy that Simon Sinek calls the patron saint of entrepreneurs. That's right. Mike Michalowicz is going to be joining us. We're actually going to talk about his new book that's coming out, why that matters in your world. And this is your chance to join us here on Book of Experts TV.
Time for Book of Experts TV.
Topics you love.
Experts you trust.
Friction-free referrals.
Tried,
tested,
Trusted.
This is Book of Experts, brought to you by salesman.me.
All right, so welcome to Book of Experts TV, Mike Michalowicz. This is kind of a big day for me, because I was telling Mike just before we jumped on that I'm a fan. I've got your books
Thank
in
you.
my mostly in the audiobook form, although I've done
Awesome.
I have Profit First in hand, and I think I did one of them through Kindle, but mostly I've been walking with you and really enjoy the breadth of your work. And I'm excited about this new book, Different is Better, because it matches up with the conversation that's happening for us in Book of Experts and in our community every single day, which is how do you differentiate yourself? How do you become really you and do more of what you and only you can do, and not try to compete with everyone else? And it's so important in this space of expert-based businesses, because they can't chase people around. It diminishes their expertise in some ways. So they really have to nail this to be able to stand out and have people, no one wants to be the best kept secret.
Tobin, it's a joy to be here. And I'll tell you the starting point is real simple and it's highly effective, is to break the label that the industry uses. So if I came to you and said, hey, nice to see you, Tobin, I'm a lawyer, I don't have to speak any further. And the reason is it's the foundational element of language. Is if I had to explain what a lawyer is every single time, we wouldn't be able to communicate. So it causes pictures to form in our mind and ideologies. I say I'm a lawyer, like, oh, okay. So you have a suitcase, a briefcase, you're walking up court steps and you're suing somebody. But the danger for me is that if you see me as a lawyer and all lawyers the same, you then conclude that all lawyers are basically the same. And if we feel all lawyers are the same, then it's to our advantage as the consumer to force downward price pressure. I need a lawyer, but are you cheap? Like, can you sharpen the pencil, Mike? But if I came with a new, fresh term, then I don't get forced into that generic box that you have in your mind. So I'll give you an example in the real world. If I said circus, it's very easy to say, oh, I can see, tents and some yuckety clown walking around, these big flippy floppy shoes. But if I said Cirque du Soleil, the interesting thing about that is if you don't speak French, it's likely the first time you heard Cirque du Soleil, your mind said, what's that? If we can get our prospect to just momentarily say, what is that? It means we've broken out of that generic box. It's not just another circus. I would argue Cirque du Soleil entered the market and said, we're the Sun Circus, which is the translation. We're the Sun Circus. But, I already know Barnum and Bailey Circus. It's a circus again. By just shifting a label where it triggers a momentary pause for the prospect to further consider what you are, opens the opportunity for you to highlight your differentiators. Now, Cirque du Soleil, it's a circus is a circus. Cirque du Soleil does acrobatic performances. They use the same people that Barnum and Bailey uses. It's the same performers. Maybe they don't have animals. They got acrobats in animal costumes. Essentially, it's the same, but they've shifted to a much more theatrical event. That's their differentiator. They do it on the main stage, not in a three-ring circus. By doing that, when someone hears Cirque du Soleil and you say, well, what does that mean? Or what is that? The person that says, you wouldn't believe this. This is a theatrical event. All these contortions and amazing things they're doing. It's not a circus. They can point to their 5% or 10% uniqueness and make that all of the uniqueness. But it starts off by breaking the label. Back to the lawyer real quick. If I say I'm in-house counsel or integrated counsel is probably even better. The prospect may say, integrated counsel, what does that mean? And I can say, well, and I point out to my differentiator, we set up shop at your shop so we understand your culture and can write legal documents around it. But you got to start off by breaking the label. That's one simple way to be different.
I love this example of Cirque du Soleil because I think before Cirque du Soleil, it was hard to imagine how a circus could really be different. You're going for the experience, you're going to see the entertainment, and there's an expectation around it. And they completely reinvented in their own brand and their term. And I imagine it's not just the titles, it's sometimes the keywords that we use to identify. And if we make this differentiation, if we find, and again, I think one of the brilliant things you said was that it might only be 5 or 10% where you're actually different from other folks in your space, but you can make the conversation all about that meaningfully unique 5%. And now all of a sudden you've stopped the scroll. You've earned the right to have a conversation or a little bit more attention around this.
That's right. So the key to standing out is to pick one element and really amplify that. That's the differentiator. Now, the label is a marketing method. And so when I wrote Different is Better, I studied really the marketing elements. But there's something more to different too, and it is the the service that you render or the product you render. It reminds me of a story of another company. It's a restaurant in Florida called Dick's Last Resort. And what they're known for is their rude service. What they did is and we've all experienced rude service at a restaurant. It's not like, oh, that's remarkable, but they took it to such a crazy extreme. Like they insult you when you show up. They make you wear a silly hat. No matter what you order, you're a fat pig for ordering it. Like it is an assault. And as a result, they are famous. People see it as a destination as opposed to just a standard restaurant. They broke out of that restaurant genre. And we can all do this. I used to own a computer business. That was my first business. And I remember I was running my business, and all of a sudden one day, I'm going into a client, and I see next door at another office, a guy walking in like this nerdy outfit. He's got the glasses on with the tape in the middle, the thin black tie, and flood pants. I'm like, who is this guy? He's got this proud badge that says Geek Squad. Geek Squad kicked my ass to Sunday. They were computer guys, just like I was. And I had all the credentials to prove how great I was. And I believed I was, but I wasn't noticeable. Geek Squad, just by using their uniform, stood out. They got acquired by Best Buy. They're a billion dollar plus organization collectively now. And it all happened because they were willing to dress differently. That was the core differentiator. That's not a 10% difference. That's a 1% difference. But it was so noticeable, it was undeniable. And who doesn't want a geek fixing their computer? That's what we all want.
Yeah, we want to be in those trusted hands, right?
Yes.
I think that, so one thing I'm hearing here is we need to own our weirdness, whatever that might be, that uniqueness. And oftentimes that is the weirdness, the thing that feels a little bit off. And so I want to voice our community for a second, Mike. I want to push back, not because I disagree, but I know that someone out there is going to be saying, I am a lawyer, or I'm a circus performer, whatever the case may be. I don't want to lose that person who might come to me for the, I'm struggling in my business. I need more business now. How do I double down on my weirdness, which potentially might repel some folks, and trust that this is going to be the thing that's going to launch me forward instead of actually potentially cost me business? How do you talk folks through that line of thinking?
And that is likely the number one fear factor, is our fear of loss by being different. I want to requalify weirdness to idiosyncrasy, and it's a subtle difference. But weirdness, I think people think of bizarre, likely offensive, right? Like, I'm going to, as a lawyer, wear a clown costume to work every day. Like, that is weird, but also it's not attractive. In fact, the second element of different is better, I came up with an acronym called D.A.D, and you have to pass the D.A.D test. A real simple mnemonic is, does D.A.D approve? Different is phase one. That's the first D. The second letter stands for attractive. So different without being attractive is repulsive. It gets noticed, but we avoid it. So we need to be attractive. So what I tell people is lean into your idiosyncrasy. Who is the true you? And maybe you're the attorney who's extraordinarily detail-oriented. How do you become ridiculously or exponentially more detail-oriented? How do you amplify that one thing? Now, realize this too. When it comes to the generic competition, the people that are just placating and watering themselves down to cater to everyone will attract a certain audience. It's usually the convenience shoppers. And a good analogy here would be with doctors. Chances are, Tobin, like me, you have a general practitioner you visit. General practitioner is a doctor who can do a lot of things at a pretty good level. But the second that, that skin rash that they would put some ointment on is indicative of skin cancer, that doctor says, I'm out. You now need a specialist. And a specialist is someone who has extreme capability, that idiosyncrasy, in one very narrow area. They decided to be masterful at their detail orientation towards skin cancer. The interesting thing, the general practitioner, the day that general practitioner says, you know what, I'm not going to be here anymore. I'm moving across the country, but I'd still love to see you visit me. Come on in for your next checkup. Like, are you kidding me? The general practitioner can only serve people that find them to be convenient. And could you imagine they say, you know what, that copay of $25, it's not working for either of us. I need to make it $25,000 for every visit. You'd be like, what crack are you smoking? I'll never see you again. But go to the cancer specialist. Now the situation is life or death, and the whole game changes. That specialist that can save your life could be located anywhere on this planet. We will make an effort to find them. We'll seek them out. And if their copay is $25,000, we're like, oh my God, that's actually a little bit better than I thought. It's a deal. So the lesson is this. In any market, there is a broad audience who wants simply enough, and it better be convenient. There is a special audience who sees your service as life-saving. It's mission critical. You are that important to them, and they're going to seek out the best. Those customers will pay a massive premium and they'll seek you out. But the only way they'll ever find you is if you go to the extreme, if you're the most of you, if you stand out. So we have a choice, be the general practitioner or be the specialist. The folks that leverage different are the specialists.
I think we see this as very relevant. Again, I'm going to call out the community at Book of Experts, but these are folks who are generally not confined to a local or a regional business. I mean, I can understand, with a tradesman, a plumber, some of these businesses, you have your geographic area, you can market in different ways. But when you are a speaker, an author, a thought leader of some kind, an agency owner, these are folks that are serving people all around the world. You have to stand out in that mix. You can't be the generalist because you're going to get lost in the shuffle. It's the noise is just the world is too noisy. I mean, so I totally get this. I'm with you on the acronym. So we've got attractive. Take us through the last D.
Yeah, the last one. So the last D in DAD is direct. It must trigger the prospect to take the action you want, or the customer take the action you want. The Super Bowl, as of this recording, it was just a little ways back, and amazing ads again, very entertaining. So they were different. They tried to do something funny or interesting or whatever. They wanted to make you cry. They wanted to evoke emotion. It was attractive. It kept us engaged. But then it's like, what was the products? I don't remember anything. There wasn't like, go to this website right now. There wasn't specific action. And maybe for these mega companies, it's worth the spend just to get a little bit of entertainment out there and to get a little more brand recognition. But for small business, we cannot afford that. Yet that's what most small business does. Hey, we're out here. Hope you find us one day. No. Get immediate action from your customer. Now, it has to be what's called reasonable action, and it has to be safe action. I can't, if I'm selling a car, I can't say, hey, you're interested in the car? Hey, give me a $25,000 deposit right now, and we'll find the car for you. That's unreasonable. It's unsafe for the prospect. Conversely, I may not ask for anything like, hey, next time you need a car, just don't forget me. I have a business card. You want that? That is so passive, I'll never get them again. What is the ask that's appropriate for that moment? Maybe give me your email or tell me the car you're looking for. I'll write down some qualifications, and with your permission, I'll notify you at the end of this week the cars that get closest to it and stay in contact with you. Ask that permission. That's the reasonable ask. So if you don't have DAD, we're going to miss out. You must DAD approve. And the best part is you can look at any marketing that's out there, not just your own, any marketing. And there's thousands of marketing messages we see every day. Look at your desk. There's like, I got a juicy fruit here. Like there's a logo right there. They're marketing. The college my son goes to, they're marketing. There's always marketing messages. Ask ourselves with any marketing you observe, is it DAD approved? And you'll see why most marketing goes ignored. It doesn't differentiate, or it doesn't attract us, or it doesn't direct us to do anything.
Yeah, this really is your superpower, Mike, I think, because you simplify messages. I love the framework. You've brought it down to 3 simple steps. And I think this idea of it's very relevant in our space because, excuse me.
You're getting emotional. I know. I get it.
The asking permission, that last D that you talked about, for us, we often talk about creating conversations, like really meeting the other person as another human being, like a relationship-based approach. In that asking of the permission, which you've built into this direct aspect of the DAD approved, is that, checking in, like, is this the right next step? As you said, it's appropriate for where you are in the process, and letting the other person engage. And because they make that micro engagement, they're also much more likely, little investments add up to eventually them enrolling into your program or buying or partaking in your services or joining your membership or whatever it is that you might have going. So I love this framework, and I love particularly the simplicity of it. And I give you all kudos on that, because I think it is one of the things that you've done really well. Not just in this book that this book, Different is Better, is coming out in the fall, correct?
Yeah.
September 21st.
September 2021. Yeah.
Yeah. So not available yet. But
Well, it is
want
for
to get
pre-order.
Up for pre-order. That's
So
right.
I just invite
Not
people,
yet.
as long as it's safe, to go to your Amazon link and you put a pre-order on, as long as you feel that's safe.
Yes, 100%. Available for pre-order, shipping on the 21st.
That's right.
This is the latest book that you have. I want to talk for a second about the body of work that you put out,
Sure.
because I think that, being a multi-time reader of your different work, why this book? Why now? Why did Different is Better come up in your world, and why has this? Because I see the work that that you're putting into this in the context. I'd like our folks to hear a little bit more about that.
Yeah. So what I have the privilege, it's a true privilege, is the ability to reach out to my readership. I'm blessed to have tens of thousands of people that there is a active permission and dialogue with, that are entrepreneurs. And what I regularly ask is, where are you stuck? What's your biggest problem? In fact, it's funny, when it came to books themselves, when someone say to me, what book should I read now? I'd enthusiastically pitch one of my own books that I'm just excited about at the moment. Like, you got to read Clockwork. It'll change. The Pumpkin Plan. But what I realized is the best book to read is what your business needs most from you. Whatever your business needs solved, invest the time in that. So I reach out to my readership. My books aren't necessarily a linear progression. You don't have to start with one to get to another one. They're tackling different issues, but what's the biggest issue going on? And I've been working on Different is Better for 10 years. So it's not like I have an idea and I just write it and it's done. I've been working for 10 years. The question is when to release it. So I have 25 different book categories I'm accumulating knowledge and researching and so forth. But the one that bubbles to the top is where the demand presents itself. And there's an interesting shift going on. Thanks, COVID pandemic. There is a surge of small business with a fundamental lack of ability. Many people that are starting businesses don't know how to market. Many people with established businesses don't know how to reposition themselves and remarket, because what worked in the past isn't working now. So there was this sudden demand to market effectively. Well, I've been researching this, and when I started hearing this a year and a half ago, with the COVID pandemic, I was like, this is the one that needs to get to market. The way I'm with a mainstream publisher, the way mainstream publishing happens, unfortunately, you can't turn it on a dime. I couldn't get it right out there. So I pitched it. We got the approval. It's actually on an expedited basis. The book is written and done. It's just not going to be released. We're recording this in February. It's not coming out until September, even though the book was completed a month ago.
Yeah, it is amazing. It's a different world.
Yeah.
I mentioned I'm in my book process right now. We're coming out next month, and it is such a different world, like the timelines that are involved. I want to talk about surge for a second. You use the word, but it's also a title of one of your books. And I actually think one of my favorites that gets a little bit less publicity. I mean, I first encountered you, was first referenced about Profit First. I mean, to me, that's the big hit that put you on the map. For a lot of people.
For sure.
Clockwork, The Toilet Paper Entrepreneur, The Pumpkin Plan. You've got a whole series here. I want to talk about Surge, and I want to talk about Fix This Next, because I think for me, they hold two different places in this world of Mike Michalowicz. Surge seems like you started the conversation around Different is Better in that book. Talking about innovation and looking at the trends that are happening around you. How does Surge and that as a standalone book play into what's coming that we'll have in our hands in September?
Yeah, so it's interesting. In Surge, I studied what I believe is the strongest marketing force that is rarely considered. So most people, when it comes to marketing, think about how do I stand out? How do I become a niche specialist? And those are all important and effective things. But the biggest force is actually the movement of the market itself. And if we can deliberately put ourselves in a position where there's surging demand and lack of supply, you win. Like an example is, say you and I and 100 other folks are dying of thirst in a desert and we're going along, and all of a sudden there is a vendor who has a supply of water. That vendor is going to get a lot of business, high demand, low supply. And the water could be pure crap. It could be bacteria ridden. It could be murky. It doesn't matter because it's such a priority. Well, that's a divergence between demand and supply. And if we can deliberately put ourselves in that position, we're going to swoop up all the opportunity. And we better very quickly get better at what we're doing because other demand will come in. So the question, of course, is how do you identify the next surge? And it's becoming really inquisitive about markets. I did this for myself in the accounting market. I'm not an accountant. I don't know the space. But what I saw is with the rise of artificial intelligence, that traditional number crunching is one of the first professions to get devastated and removed. In fact, in the last couple of years, we saw major innovations from QuickBooks and different accounting platforms that have employed artificial intelligence. The computers are better than the people, is what it's boiling down to. And not everyone realizes it yet, but it's in place. And so the accounting profession is going away quickly. So with that happening, I said, oh, with the accounting profession going, that means there's a lot of accountants and those professionals that are looking for a new way to deliver services. They got to reinvent themselves. Can I offer a service that helps them with the reinvention? And that's what I did. And that company, it's called Profit First Professionals. That company, I'm so blessed, is on a skyrocket climb because we're in the supply position and demand is growing faster than the supply. That's what surge is about. Start by looking for these movements in markets, position yourself in front of it, but then build a business around that is competent and capable so you can catch the momentum that's coming.
I love this. So there's really two sides to it. You talked a little bit about it in the Surge as the book. Most of the book was describing this market dynamic, identifying where this demand is going to be and getting in front of that wave to ride it. And now with different is better, you're actually coming back and I think building on a subset or subsection of that book with a little bit more information about how to differentiate as you're going to be riding that wave forward.
That's exactly right. Exactly right. It was interesting as I was looking at marketing. I've read so many of my contemporaries' books. There are extraordinary marketing books out there, and I saw a common theme, and therefore an opportunity to serve the community of readers of marketing books even better. That these books, most of them focused on marketing plans, which is necessary and appropriate. But what I saw was a little bit of a lack of focusing on what happens in the milliseconds of marketing. Marketing literally happens in milliseconds. If you look at junk mail, like if you go to your mailbox, we are very efficient at going through those 15 or 20 pieces saying garbage, garbage, garbage. Oh, interesting, garbage, garbage, garbage. Oh, interesting. So the question is, what triggers our interest? And that's what we explore in Different is Better. What I found is there's only 3 ways to get people to pay attention to you. One is to be a known qualified opportunity. Oh, it's a check in the mail for a lot of money. I know what a check looks like. This is an opportunity and we'll pay attention to it. The second is a threat. I grab something and some white powder falls out. It's like, whoa, I will pay attention. I will avoid it, but I'll pay attention to it. So in marketing, you can be an opportunity or a threat. Threats don't work because it repels people. Opportunity can be very costly because, you can market to a prospect and put $1 million check in their hand. They will pay attention, but they may leave with $1 million and you may not leave with business. But there's a third thing. And the third thing was the unexpected, the unknown. There's quick biological explanation. The base of our brain stem, or where the brain stem, where the spinal column meets the brain, there's a thing called the reticular formation. Reticular formation is like a net. You may have heard of the reticular activating system. Tony Robbins talks about stuff like that. But reticular formation, its primary job function is to ignore, meaning most of the stimulus around us, we ignore it because if we considered everything, it would overwhelm us. It would actually kill us. It'd be too much caloric burn. So the brain is designed to ignore everything, except opportunities get fast forwarded to the prefrontal cortex for us to analyze and say, ooh, that check is worth something. Threats go to another part of our brain called the amygdala. It's the hyper fast response. If something squiggles in the grass and we jump back without thinking, that's the amygdala kicking in saying, oh, that could be a snake. We jump back. The only other way through the prefrontal cortex, through reticular formation is unknown. When something's unknown, the reticular formation says, we got to evaluate this because this could be an opportunity or it could be a threat. So if you present something that's different, it gets prioritized to be evaluated. Then you must go to the A phase, the attract phase, and be an opportunity. That doesn't have to be money. It just has to be something that's compelling and engaging. So
This makes so much sense to me from an experiential perspective, and then to hear your description of the neuroscience behind what's actually happening in these micro moments of marketing.
Yeah.
And I've made a note about that. I love that reference. So we're talking about different is better, which is the book that you have coming out. It's available now for pre-order, but we'll be shipping in the fall.
Thanks for pitching it.
Let's talk about fix this next
Yeah.
for a second, because when we talked about the sort of array of books, the body of work that you produced, and I love your description, by the way, which is the most important book is the one that is the challenge that you're facing in your business right now. It seems like Fix This Next is that book almost as a hub that will guide people to the other resources, to walk them through a framework so they can identify where their attention should go. Because as an entrepreneur, it feels like everything is demanding our attention. You have a process to help them identify, and then they can go take the deeper dive if they need to pumpkin plan their business, if they need to look at actually doing the profit first process so they enjoy their business again. There's different aspects. CLOCKWORK, I think there's an aspect of freedom in all of your books. But am I reading that right? Is that a good starting point for a lot of folks to get to know Mike and your work?
You nailed it. And it was interesting. As I was asking entrepreneurs what their biggest challenge is, what became very apparent is the biggest challenge entrepreneurs have is knowing what their biggest challenge is. There's this constant compulsion to address all the apparent issues in front of us. Like you and I could hop in our email right now and there's 50 things to do, and there's, listen to your voicemail or check your texts, and there's a boatload of things you could do. There's a client that's not being served. And the propensity entrepreneurs have is to put out that fire. I'm gonna run and put this out. And there's a feeling of accomplishment too, because we put out yet another fire. And maybe as we grow our business a little bit, we're not a firefighter as much as a fire chief, but we're constantly dispatching. What happens very quickly is you're just in sustaining mode. You're just trying to get through the moment. But a business that's ultimately successful, definition of successful, growing healthily, organically, is one that gets rid of those big blockages. And we have to identify what they are. If you're always at the surface level of putting out fires, you'll never figure it out. And most entrepreneurs, therefore, don't know what it is because of these apparent issues. Fix This Next is a protocol or system to rapidly identify what the business needs. Not a thing we think it needs, what it really needs. Because ultimately, the business is its own entity. I think another trap we fall into as business owners, we feel that we can trust our gut. Like, oh, my gut says we need more sales. My gut says we need, but our gut is of great service in our own survival as humans because we're neurologically wired to ourselves. My sight, my hearing, my senses trigger if I'm unsafe or there's a problem. But we're not wired into our business. Our business is an independent entity. We need to look at empirical data. We need to know the numbers and qualify things. So Fix This Next is a way to very rapidly identify on a quantifiable level where we can get empirical data and very quickly analyze what the business truly needs. Then our job is to resolve that. The analogy is kind of like a chain. If you and I, Tobin, had a chain between us and we're pulling it, and the goal is to make this chain stronger, the chain will always snap in the same spot. It's the weakest link. The propensity entrepreneurs have is to fix every link. And they say, I'm fixing everything, but nothing's working. Because we're just randomly fixing links in the chain, but it continues to snap the weakest link. If we first identify the weakest link, then strengthen that. Now the entire strength of the chain has been elevated. It'll break again, but now at a new weakest link, we fix that. So in our business, identify the weakest link, concentrate your energy in resolving that. The other thing's got to keep the plate spinning, but you've got to resolve the big blockage, and the entire business will up level. And you find the next blockage, resolve that, and the business up levels yet again.
I don't think I've ever heard anyone else describe this dynamic of first recognizing that we are not our businesses, that is two separate entities. And obviously, there's the whole accounting perspective on that, but also how you tied in the gut feeling as entrepreneurs, because we probably wouldn't be in this position, in this role, if we hadn't trusted that and harnessed that in some way in the first place. But to recognize that our gut feeling is not the compass or the navigating mechanism that the business needs, that there are other factors that have to come into play because there is this separation between the individual and the business. So I thought that's really good. I haven't heard that anywhere else. If someone else said it first, I don't know who it is.
Yeah, maybe. I think our gut honestly brings unjustified courage, meaning the gut's a wonderful thing because we're like, yeah, I can just feel it, but we have no data to back it, and therefore we proceed. So it gives us the courage. But at a certain point, we are making decisions that are not in the best interest of the business. In the very beginning, it's hard to do any wrong as long as you're doing something. But at a certain point, that initial fervor that gets the business off the ground won't sustain it to the next level. And that's where this analysis happens. And it happens very early. Getting business off the ground to, I'm just gonna pick random numbers here, but $100,000 or $200,000, you can just do it on raw effort in anything. But if you want to get to the next level and the next level beyond that, it becomes much more of a systemic approach, much more analytical, and a lot less gut and instinct.
Yeah, really well said. Mike, one of the reasons why your material speaks to me and why I'm so excited to bring this to our community is I think you've been really honest and raw, honestly, about your story as an entrepreneur. That was a big part of the books of things weren't always beautiful. They weren't always perfect. You rode the roller coaster. It's kind of a trite question to ask, but I am curious about this because of the body of work that you've now put out. What did young Mike Michalowicz not know that you have all these books? You would have handed him the whole section of books now that would have guided him. But if you could have a 30-minute consultation with young Mike, what would be different? What would you say to him or to that version of yourself that we can learn from, that we would hear from your perspective now, having put all this work, this bigger, broader perspective?
I would have told myself to grow a beard earlier because my wife likes it. So I didn't know I'd turn into a Civil War general though, but that would be one thing.
You have a very Joshua Chamberlain look, Joshua. Yeah. I grew up in Maine. He's a big,
it's awesome.
He was our Civil War hero.
He's my doppelganger. So I would have likely told myself that happiness and success happens in going deep and not broad. And I really didn't understand that. I thought the more things I did for more people and had more variability, that was the epitome of success. But what quickly became apparent, it didn't quickly become apparent. In retrospect, it becomes apparent, was that as I broadened out, I diluted my ability to be good at anything. And so over time, I've honed and become more focused on being really good at one thing. And I can't even say I'm the best author ever, but I aspire to be. And I'm just staying in this category. And what resonates, the fact that you said you're simplifying entrepreneurship, not your exact words, lands so much with me because that is my goal, to take these complex ideas and refine them. Well, I'm working on this craft constantly. Even this morning, I was writing this morning, 6 a.m. Every morning I start writing to hone the craft. Like younger me was like going for the quick grabs and the quick wins. And it's not sustainable, or it doesn't grow beyond this constant desperate need just to sustain. By going deep and really honing in a craft, there's something magical that happens at that next level. I'm just so blessed, the recognition stuff I'm getting as an author. But really it's only in the last few years, even though I've been an author now for 15 years. But because I stayed with it and I'm focusing on it, I'm starting to have those overnight success moments. The thing is this, if I told younger me that, I don't know if I really got it anyway. I think I had to go through my journey. I have to have my struggles. I have to continue to make stupid mistakes, I think, to learn. So I would have told myself that, but younger me would probably said, yeah, let's go drinking.
I've wondered that too, because the journey creates who we are today, to have that perspective. Is there one thing that we're going to talk to younger Mike for a second, the one that just wants to go get a drink. And so we're going to be really direct and clear with him. Is there one thing that you would have told him to just stop doing that? If you don't do anything else, is it just this one thing? Stop doing that piece so that you can free up the energy.
You know what? It would have been stop hiring people. My ego was so tied into the size of my business, really not the revenue. That was part of it, but it was more about the number of employees because it felt good. Yeah, I got 20 people, I got 30 people working for me. I'm a big deal. There was no fiscal discipline whatsoever that I had. I was panicked to sell to support all the people I had. And the second I sold more, I might get more people in. It was absurd. The fiscal burden I put on my companies was horrible. My first two businesses, I was lucky to sell those businesses. And when I say I was lucky because they were not fiscally responsible. I was not fiscally responsible. Those businesses were struggling. I was desperate. I had to refinance my house to pay payroll one time. I mean, it was really scary, but my ego is so tied into size. Now I want the smallest business generating significant impact, which translates to revenue in this world. And I want a few employees that are performing at their highest level, and I can pay them and reward them at the highest level. I want to be lean and mean now. That really inspires me. But back then, it was just size, all I cared about.
Mike, this has been great. You have dropped several wisdom drops for us throughout the conversation. I so appreciate you. The work is there. The knowledge is in the book, so people can go and absorb that. But I think you gave us a few nuances today that I haven't heard from you before, or maybe I just wasn't ready to hear them from you. Maybe they were there all along, but I really enjoyed that from you. Folks, first of all, the book, Different is Better. You can go pre-order it now. It is it's going to be shipping September 21st, 2021. So it's out there. You can look at Mike's other books. So we're talking about Profit First. We're talking about Clockwork, The Pumpkin Plan, The Toilet Paper Entrepreneur, Fix This Next, which might be actually the first one that you want to look at if you're not really sure where to start. Did I miss any, Mike? You've got it's a
maybe
big body
Surge. I don't know if you said Surge.
Surge, I didn't. And we talked about Surge earlier, but I missed it in that list. Thank you. Because that's actually one of my favorite ones. Probably gets a little less attention than it deserves.
Oh, totally does. It's interesting. That book was I went down a tangential path here of doing more theory-based as opposed to application-based. And actually, it's one of the books I'm most proud of in the way it can serve people, but it is the least popular because it's not congruent with my differentiator, right? I started getting a little Malcolm Gladwell-esque. He's extraordinary at that. I'm not. So he should be doing theory and concepts. And I went back to what I'm really competent at, which is simplifying, making it very actionable.
Yeah, I can see that. And folks, listen, one of the best things you can do when you find someone like Mike that speaks to you and you enjoy the work, one of the most valuable things that you can do for them, for the gift that they've given you, but also honestly to put yourself on their radar is go leave a review. Like go check out Mike's podcast. It's I want to make sure I get the name right. Mike Up in Your Business.
Yes.
Yes. So have fun with that. Like go absorb some of this information even before you look at the books. That's a great place to go. But leave a review, leave a recommendation because that helps him. That builds a relationship there. It's a great way to get to know folks and get known by other folks. Of course, you can do that for us too with Book of Experts too, if you want to. It's just a suggestion, but not required. We'd love to have your support as well. Mike, this has been great. I really appreciate you taking the time to share this with our community. It's been fabulous to hear a little bit more, and I'm really excited about the book that's coming out.
Tobin, thank you so much for having me, brother.
Guys, how great was that? Like Mike, I have to tell you, Mike was the most authentic person. Like sometimes I was a little starstruck when I got a chance to chat with him the first time. Like I didn't know how different people show up in different ways, but he's just the most down to earth, real guy. Other people had referenced that about him, but I didn't really know until you experience it firsthand. But I got a chance to chat with him a little bit. I love some of the comments that have come in as we've been sharing this today. So Kim said, I just increased my reading list, and that's right. We talked before about Mike's, this is a screenshot from his website, but you can actually see the different books if you didn't catch some of those titles. He did talk about Fix This Next and why that might be a good place to start if you're not sure which one, because it's kind of like a way of measuring or assessing your business and sort of figuring out where should your attention flow to. Profit First is his biggest one, best known. And by the way, I put this in the comments, but I just want to make sure folks hear this as well. Today, and it ends today. It just happens that today you can get Profit First out of the Kindle store for less than $2. So if you're not really sure, you don't know if you grab that one, get introduced to Mike Michalowicz. Time is perfect. It won't be there tomorrow for $2. I mentioned on the podcast, on the interview, that Surge is actually one of my favorites. I really enjoyed thinking about those marketing dynamics and constantly reference it in my own head, thinking about how we can position ourselves. What are the surges in the marketplace that are happening around us? CLOCKWORK, if you're trying to systematize your business, if you want ideas of basically so that you can own the business instead of the business owning you, CLOCKWORK will be your best friend. Of course, there's the pumpkin plan, there's the toilet paper entrepreneur, and coming in September, you can order it now, and I already have, but it will actually be in your hand in September. Different is better. And the whole focus and what we're going to do next is actually get into the D.A.D test. We're actually going to go to our Q&A tables. And let me grab the link for some of you guys that might want to join us on this. I will throw this in the comments now. We've got a group already there. They're just getting ready to wrap up this interview. We're going to jump on the Q&A tables. And folks, this is my challenge to you. The D.A.D test is you want to think about how are you different, how are you attractive, and what is the direct ask? What is the thing that you can ask? And it has to be, what did he call it? He said the appropriate ask given the situation, that there has to be that direct call to action. Of course, he gave us the whole neuroscience and everything about why this works. But I want you to think about yourself, your business, and how you can walk through those 3 steps. We're going to talk about this at the Q&A tables in a small group. You can share your ideas, get some feedback from the group. And then when we jump into the speed networking, you can actually go use your D.A.D approved strategic introduction. You can actually meet new people because you just learned something from the other experts around you. They gave you some great feedback. You say, oh, maybe a little bit more of this, or here are a couple other thoughts. How can you break that label, right? The label that, let's see, get this off. There we go. We all carry a label. I'm a direct marketer. I'm a lawyer. I'm a website builder. I'm a, whatever it is for you. How can you break the label in a way that people say, oh, and you stop them? You get that immediate reaction. The different is going to cut through. And of course, you can't just be different. You can't just be weird for the sake of being weird. We also want it to be attractive. So when we can start to put the 2 of those together, this is a pretty nice framework, right? Only 3 steps: different, attractive, and then you got to have that direct call to action. So that's what we're going to do on the Q&A tables. We're going to talk about it first. We're going to workshop it in our small groups, and then we're going to go into the speed networking so that you'll have a chance to test it out on other people and see how they respond to that. That's the best part of what we do with our masterclass plus networking format, which is you're learning, and then you can go immediately talk to folks about what you just learned. What does the speed networking look like? It looks like this. All right, so get ready, folks. We're going to be jumping into AirMeet. We're going to go to the Q&A tables. Get ready for the speed networking that's coming up next. Let me look through my list. I think that's everything. Yeah, let's go talk about this. Let's actually give your business the D.A.D test and see what you can do with it. And I will see you at the Q&A tables.
Time for Book of Experts TV.
Topics you love.
Experts you trust.
Friction-free referrals.
Tried,
Tested.
Trusted.
This is Book of Experts, brought to you by Salesman.